schemes of the 70s. Another point discussed by the panel is the promotion of diversification. When we talk structural vulnerability, we think of the concentration of exports and the diversification of the export as an answer. And we have to recognize that there has been some progress. Figures are a little difficult to interpret because the under-concentration index of the LDCs has been increasing, but due to the oil exporters. But for the non-oil, non-mineral exporter LDCs, there has been, during the last 15 years, a decrease of the export concentration, but small decrease, less than in other developing countries again, but significant one. The problem is that diversification to be a good factor of growth promotion should be a competitive diversification, and what is needed is, besides market access, that the support measure could help to promote infrastructure and all the other kinds of help for trade. But infrastructure, again, is very crucial for this diversification of small countries. Let me, as a last point, to say a word of regional integration as a way to tackle structural economic vulnerability. Most of LDCs, as I told, are small population size. Many are landlocked. Smallness is a major source of vulnerability, and the concentration and the instability of the export are significantly lower at the regional level than at the national one. And there are many ways by which external support can favor regional integration, transitionally finance cost due to the loss of duties or institution, but again, regional infrastructure in transportation and energy. But in spite of the declaration, less attention has been paid than it deserves, in my view. I take only an example to finish, to end. There is a good move from the integrated framework to the enhanced integrated framework by the six supporting international organizations. But this EIF is always at the country level, never at the regional level, and it's really paradoxical when a regional integrated framework enhanced. No, I think I have exhausted my time. My last slide was on climate change, but we have also another panel organized by these organizations on the climate change tomorrow. And it could be, for me, the opportunity to say that LDCs are also more vulnerable to climate change, and it calls for specific measures on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we come to the end of the assessments of the panel, and we have actually exhausted all the time that was at our disposal in the beginning. So for questions, we will put another 30 minutes maximum. So, please.
Is there a mic? Thank you, Chair. My name is Farooq Subhan. I'm from Bangladesh, where I head a small think tank. We work on private sector development. I'd like to congratulate the panel. As far as I'm concerned, they've certainly passed my vulnerability index. I stayed awake throughout, so that's the good news. The bad news, Mr. Chair, is that 30 years ago, I was chairing the LDC group in New York, and I was also chairing the G77 in New York. A lot of what we discussed coming both out of the first LDC conference, alas, sounds quite familiar as we debate what should be done for the LDCs here at the fourth conference. I endorse pretty much everything that the panel said. My key question is implementation, whether it's market access, whether it's the subject of climate change and migration, whether indeed it's the Doha round. What exactly can we do to make things happen, to convert these very high-sounding declarations into actual action?
Are you addressing this question to a certain person or
the panel?
The whole panel, okay. Who would like to?
Can we take a number of questions?
No, this is probably better. Okay, good. Here there was another.
Thank you very much. I have a question also to the panel, because I haven't heard very much about financial innovations as a solution to vulnerability. For example, we have developed jointly with the Agence Française de Développement some years ago the instrument of counter-cyclical soft loans, where the grace period is essentially redefined. When raw commodity shocks hit, that countries can call on the grace period. So
Okay, thank you. I'll take a third question and then return back to the panel.
Thank you. I'm Mehmet Arda from Galatasaray University, but I was for 25 years on UNCTAD, and I'm so proud of it, I always mention that. Now, everything we hear are very, all the things that we've heard are very useful, very important. But what I'm sort of missing is LDC specificity. Now, do we need LDC specificity in the actions that we're proposing? Or is it just development for the proposals are for anybody, and are these just for the LDCs? Maybe a little bit more. For instance, from the EU side, or others as well, most development assistance goes to specific countries. It doesn't. There are a lot of LDCs among them. It is not because they're LDCs that it goes. It is because they're important for certain countries or for certain issues. So, do you think, with the panel again, think that putting the LDCs more on the agenda as LDCs would help in furthering in advancing their causes? And if so, how could that be done?
And the question is addressed to the whole panel?
I guess so. I mentioned EU because, or the parliamentarians, for instance. Parliamentarians, not as EU parliamentarians, but parliamentarians in general, as the, is being an LDC an issue?
Thank you. I think I will turn back to the panel and get the responses to the three remarks.
Be the first victim. Just like to venture to make a fool of myself, but implementation. I think I don't think we should blame anyone. With all the goodwill in this world, and you've been around for so many years, to see that it takes two sides to clap a hand, and implementation. Sometimes we would demand that some of the commitments be delivered by the donors, development partners, but many times I do see that the LDCs themselves will need to do a bit of their own effort. And at this meeting, we particularly emphasize the fact that we must have a plan to graduate for the LDCs. We cannot just come back to the next meeting 10 years from now and see a number of LDC. Now it's going to rise with the inclusion of South Sudan in the next couple of months to 40, 49. And we could not come back next time with 49 as a number, or maybe 49 to 50 or just 48. We have actually planned for graduation of 10 countries, a great potential to graduate within the next decade. So that is something that we need to help implement. And some of the facts and figures that have been presented here should help. And I emphasize, implementation is on both sides, from development partners, and also from the countries themselves. We propose also that the LDCs should actually begin to be serious about domestic resource mobilization. I've been criticized for saying so because LDC used to tell me if we can do our own domestic resources mobilization, we wouldn't be an LDC. I thought this is not true. Even in LDC, you can do microcredit, you can do development banks, you can do remittances, as Michelle has been talking, many things you can do. So this is the first thing on implementation. Counter-cyclical soft loan, I don't know. It has been proposed. I think we're trying to do something on that with the Starbucks and along that line. Again, UNCTAD is trying to propose that again in the light of the recent crisis. We think that stimulus measures are available mainly in the advanced economy, and LDCs are now going back. There are now 14 LDCs that are in distress because of that debt increase. So we believe that some forms of counter-cyclical soft loan, as you said, should be established. There must be something attached to it. For example, if we do clean development strategy linked to something that would put in a new investment cycles into the picture, and as many countries, advanced countries, have been doing during the period of recession to stimulate the economy. On LDC specificity, the only thing I can say is that we also believe that there is no one-size-fits-all. I mean, and most of the donors also, I think, all the things. Of course, sometime when you have to deal through the negotiations, like through the Doha round, it must be on the same basis: spatial and differential treatment, spatial concession for duty-free, quota-free. It is the same basis, and this is required that everything is done on a specificity of the whole LDC as a group. But for specificity as an individual LDCs, I think we need to emphasize that. And just today, during our luncheon meeting on Joint Investment Advisory Council, I tried to single out Comoros as an LDC with some of the lowest income in the world as a challenge to the investors present in the room, because President was actually exposing his real strategy on development. And I challenged them whether they can link up to all these things to see that this is here a specificity for this economy, all the potential for geothermal, potential for tourism, fishery, everything is there. No investment, no capital, nothing to start off with. So that is something that is specific, and that is all I can say. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else from the panel? Please.
Well, on the last point, no, for me, I don't challenge the concept at all because it exists. If it exists, it's useful. And if it exists, I use it in my development, preparation of development policies. And particularly, it's helpful when you attribute the financial envelopes. If you would like to differentiate, you need something objective. And LDCs is, you can always argue are the right criteria, but it's accepted criteria. So it's very helpful really to get the focus. I believe the same is with trade. It does some damage regionally, but still it's a clear-cut concept, and the countries benefit from the trade regime. So I would say there's no even ideas that I should challenge it. So I think it is internationally accepted, and you do it. It's like oil prices. So you just accept it. Even if you implementation issue, it is. I think it is